Hey guys, we started October 16th. We're coming up on 8 weeks, December 11th. And so I want to go ahead and try to emphasize some things visually. Maybe that'll help. The first issue that we're having right now is availability and pricing. Okay. Because we don't have the original features such as syncing with Google Calendars and checking for keywords to check availability, or having, as Satnam you had recommended, customers go in, or affiliates go in rather, and update their availability by logging in. I've tried to remedy some of this with some of the additional features. For instance, a bulk hour feature. You have the bulk hour, and then you have the bulk hour rate. Basically, some companies might say, hey, if you rent for 5 or more hours, we'll drop the price on all the hours rented down, either by a percentage or by a dollar amount. So instead of, say, $75 an hour, if you go 5 or plus hours, they'll charge $70 an hour, again, from hour 1 to whatever time that they rent it for. Of course, you'd have to have the bulk hour rate field to be able to enter that. You could have a percentage or, again, the rate. So their normal rate's 75, their bulk hour rate would be, say, 70. Now, obviously, there's no way to standardize one way based upon trip time. Even if a Google API could tell us the trip time, it's based upon traffic, a lot of other variables. So the only way to basically standardize that process is you can, first off, give the affiliate the option to have a one-way transfer rate, yes or no. So again, that would be another feature within the database. If no is selected, then the hourly minimum would apply. If yes is selected, you could have a flat rate. Say the flat rate's $75, okay? And then you could have a standardization of miles to time. So say 1 mile equals 1.5 minutes, for instance. In that case, 40 miles would equal 1 hour. 30 miles would equal 45 minutes, because again, you're multiplying 30 times 1.5, 45 minutes, or 0.75 of the hourly rate.
Go.
Now, as a side note, of course it takes longer for someone in New York, for instance, or a highly populated area to get a mile than it would in a rural area or within central Texas. How we came up with the 1.5 figure is we took an epicenter in a region, a north point, a west point, an east point, and a south point. Okay? Now, obviously, we take the estimated travel time on all 4 points, okay? And we divide by the mileage. So if this takes 40 minutes, we divide that by 30 miles. That would be 1.25 in that case. Same thing would be done for this. You would add up all these different numbers and you would divide by 4. And then you would get the region's miles to minute rate. Again, that's a side note. So like I said, again, 1.5 minutes for every mile is pretty much how we could standardize this to begin with. So if they have a flat rate, 75 plus 20 miles, obviously it'd be 20 times 1.5, and that would give you the time, and then you could just come up with the additional charge on top of 75 based upon their hourly rate. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is trip time. Like we talked about before, trip time is the time that it takes to get to the pickup address, and it's the time that it takes to get back to the vehicle's location from the drop-off address. So you could have pickup address minus vehicle address minus 25. Add that to drop-off address minus vehicle address minus 25. You take the answer and you multiply that by 1.5. Now, of course, we're subtracting 25 miles because within a 25-mile range, there's no charge. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the minimum rental time if drop-off is after 9 p.m. for Friday or Saturday. For instance, if the job goes from 7 until 9, then the normal rate, or the normal minimum rather, would apply. But if the job goes from 7 to 10, then the company might say, well, we have a 4-hour minimum. So if that drop-off is after 9 p.m., then we have a 4 or a 5-hour minimum. The reason is that Fridays and Saturdays are the highly demanded dates for a limousine company. And if a job goes after 9 p.m., they can't re-rent that vehicle out for that night. So a lot of companies might have 3-hour minimum during the day, but later they're going to have a 5-hour minimum. Again, if the drop-off goes after 9 p.m. Because once you get past 9 p.m., any rental time is going to lock up the vehicle for the rest of the night. If the job goes until 10:30, they're not going to be able to re-rent it out for that night. Also, Sunday through Thursday discount. It can also be a percentage rate or a discount percentage. Or excuse me, a decreased rate or a discount percentage. So for instance, if it's Sunday through Thursday, instead of 75 an hour, they have 70 an hour. Or you could effectively do the same thing and offer a 5% discount. Either way. And then I want to talk about a special pricing per date time frame. This would be the best way to do it. You could go in specifically, but that's a lot of data entry, and I think that that would be harder for y'all to do. So again, we could go with what I already mentioned, those added features, and it pretty much generally hits most of the needs that I'm talking about as far as pricing goes. Now, as far as the proximity, just to emphasize how we're doing this, here's the user, 25 miles. Okay, so if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles within a 25-mile perimeter, we do not have to go to any more unless they click 5 more, which is an original feature that I wanted at the bottom of the vehicle results page. So if they click 5 more, or the results are producing less than 5, then it would go to the next 25 miles. So let's say there's only 3 in here, 1 in here. Now we only have 4. Then it would go to the next 25 miles. Let's say there's only 2 in here, 1 here, 1 here. Then it would go to the next 25 miles until 5 minimum. Or they click 5 more. But we have a 100-mile max. Now, obviously, if a vehicle is outside, especially in one of these areas, if it's 50 miles out, 75 miles out, or 100 miles out, of course, they're going to want an extra fee on top, not just the times that they're in the vehicle, but the time that it takes to get to pick up and to get back from drop-off. In that case, again, we could have trip time, like I had talked about before, based upon mileage, would apply here. So 1.5 minutes for every mile. And of course, the first 25 miles would be for free. Or I had mentioned before, a company could have a duplicate listing. They could list their vehicle here. They could list their vehicle here if they don't feel like they need to charge an extra rate. The only other remedy would be to have a notification. Minimum, this would be the minimum requirement, at least have a notification. If the vehicle is outside of the initial 25 miles, you have a pop-up that notifies the customer that trip time may apply.